New videos every day.
What are the leading causes of preventable death? We are going to talk about these, and we're going to start from 9 to 1. We're going to go from the 9th leading cause of death to the 1st leading cause of preventable death. So if you like, go ahead and pause it, take 4 or 5 guesses, see how many you get right. So we're going to go through all of them, and then we're going to talk about it. Now, the data we're using is from the Journal of the American Medical Association. It is a little dated. It's from 2000, but it is actually the most recent data that we could find. So the number 9 leading cause of preventable death is illicit drug use. And the resulting deaths can be from overdose or organ failure. But number 9 is illicit drug use, and from the data that we're using, it shows that in 2000 there were 17,000 deaths from illicit drug use, and that accounts for 0.7% of the total deaths for that year. Number 8 leading cause of preventable death is sexual behaviors, and according to our data, that's 20,000 deaths and 0.8% of the total deaths. So the sexual behaviors would mean deaths from sexual transmitted diseases like AIDS, venereal diseases, things like that. Number 7 leading cause of preventable death is by the use of firearms. That accounted for 29,000 deaths and 1.2% of the total deaths. The number 6 leading cause of preventable death is automobile accidents, and that contributed to 43,000 deaths and 1.8% of the total deaths that year. The number 5 leading cause of preventable death is by toxic agents, and it contributed to 55,000 deaths and 2.3% of the total deaths that year. So these toxic agents could be chemicals, pesticides, heavy metals. It would be a combination of things, but 55,000 people. The number 4 leading cause of preventable death was microbial agents, which resulted in 75,000 deaths and which contributed to 3.1% of the total deaths that year. So microbial agents would be people who died from infections from bacteria or viruses, but mainly it's focusing on deaths from infections. The next 3, the top 3 leading causes of death are choices that people make every single day on a continual basis. So it's something that they are choosing to do. It's not like they get in an accident and that's why they die. These are choices that people die from, and they're choices that they're making every single day. The number 3 leading cause of preventable death is alcohol consumption. Now, with alcohol, it's a choice that someone is making, so it's not like, we're not talking about when someone is killed in a motor vehicle accident by a drunk driver, because we've already talked about the automobile accidents. So this is actually from alcohol consumption, liver failure, organ failure due to excessive alcohol drinking. It resulted in 85,000 deaths and 3.5% of the total deaths that year. The number 2 leading cause of preventable death is lack of physical activity and poor diet. So, of course, this is where I come in. In other words, the number 2 cause of death is obesity. Now, that resulted in 365,000 deaths and 15.2% of the total deaths in the U.S. that year. In other words, there are 365,000 people that are dying on a yearly basis, and actually that number has gone up since the data that we're using. But there's basically 1,000 people dying every day from a choice that they have made to not live healthy. And their number 1 leading cause of preventable death, if you haven't guessed it already, is tobacco use and smoking. That contributed to 435,000 deaths and 18.1% of the total deaths that year. So, of course, I'm a nutritionist and I'm passionate about nutrition, so the leading cause of preventable death that we are going to highlight today is, of course, obesity, poor diet, and lack of physical activity. Now, I'm going to put this graph up that shows the 9 different leading causes of death, and I'm going to make some comments about it, but I'm going to post it so you can see what we're talking about. Now, the first thing I want you to look at is how big the bar is for the obesity deaths, so that's highlighted by the poor diet, compared to the motor vehicle accidents. So you have 365,000 deaths for obesity, and then you only have 43,000 deaths for the motor vehicle crashes. So just look at that difference. Now, the next thing I want you to look at, and this is actually pretty freaky, because if you add all the deaths from drug use, sexual activity, firearms, motor vehicle accidents, toxic agents, microbial agents, and alcohol use, they only equal 13.4% of the total deaths. Well, we just said that the deaths from obesity equals 15.2%. So all the deaths from 3 through 9 that we just mentioned don't even equal the deaths from obesity. So if you take all of the obesity deaths from that year and divide it out per day, that comes to 1,095 deaths per day. 1,095 deaths. And then if you break it down even more, that's 46 deaths an hour. So, and then if you break it down even further, by the time that you have watched this part of the video, there's been about 5 Americans that have died from obesity. Now, between the years of 1980 and 2000, the adult obesity rates have almost doubled, and the teenage obesity rates have tripled. Now, I gotta say this because I know a lot of people blame obesity on genetics, but in 20 years, your genes do not change that fast. So if your genetics aren't changing that fast, what is changing in that 20-year period? Well, our diet has significantly changed, and our level of physical activity has changed. So we've already discussed that the primary leading cause of obesity is lack of physical activity and poor diet. And yet 25% of adults and less than 25% of teenagers are eating the recommended amount of 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. And then on the exercise side of things, we have more than 50% of adults not engaging in regular physical activity, and more than 1/3 of young Americans aren't doing any regular vigorous activity as well. So we have an increase in obesity, yet we basically have a decrease in physical activity and diet quality. And this is just going to knock your socks off. The straight healthcare costs from obesity were $75 billion in 2003. Think about how much money we would save if this country wasn't obese. Now, the data we were using was from 2000, so it's been dated, but we did find some more recent research. There was a study released from the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control of the federal government. It said that the deaths due to physical inactivity and poor diet rose by 33% in the last decade, and that it may soon overtake tobacco as a leading cause of preventable death. And then another study that we found in 2007, so that's real recent, stated that adult obesity rates increased in 31 states and didn't decrease in any of the states. So that was from 2007. So the evidence is showing that even with how bad the statistics are that we talked about earlier in this video, the numbers keep rising. So I'm a nutritionist, and I've basically dedicated the rest of my life to encouraging people to become healthier, to make better choices, to, lose weight, reach their health goals, whatever it may be. And I'm so passionate about it, and I'm so passionate about seeing other people reach their goals. It's so rewarding to help someone get there. So I've made these videos, and we get emails all the time from people that say they're losing weight, and they haven't had to pay anything, they haven't had to fork out money for any special program. They just took the time to watch the videos, and they've applied the things that we've talked about. So whether it's changing your diet or increasing your activity, avoiding refined sugar, so whatever the things that we talked about in the videos, people are applying them and they're losing weight. So I want to encourage you to take the time to watch the videos. They're free. Just take the time. Maybe 20 or 30 years ago, you could get away without paying attention, and you didn't have to learn about nutrition or about health, but gone are those days. Our diet was better back then. Our activity level was better back then, but those days aren't here anymore. With the obesity rates as high as they are, in order for you to not die early and for you to have a good quality of life, you have to pay attention. You have to learn something about the subject of nutrition. So subscribe to these free videos, because I think if you take in this information, it's going to make you more aware. And if you're more aware, you can make better choices, and ultimately you'll feel better and be healthier, and you can live a longer life. Take care of yourself. Bye.